The Haunted Mission. Act 1. The Arrival. Fog buried the forest. Wind made its way, whispering through the trees. From the distance, a rise-in tower appeared from the mist. Old ruined mission house was there, said to be haunted. Long, abandoned over a century ago, following a string of deaths that cannot be explained, this building once was a place of hope and healing. But tonight, that history would be revisited. Scene 1. Introduction of characters. 6 adventurous strangers, all unknown to each other, have been invited mysteriously to spend their weekend at the abandoned mission. They each received an anonymous letter promising a generous reward for their ability to stay there for 2 nights. Nobody knows why they are being invited, and nobody knew who sent it, but curiosity, greed, and a desire for thrills drove them. The group stands before the entrance to the mission. Their faces are filled with nervous glances. Their breaths form small clouds in this cold night air. Jimmy pushes it open by force and steps forward within the grounds. Scene 2. The Mission House. Inside the mission, the air inside is thick with dust and decay. The building is huge with stone, walls, dark hallways, and rooms with the weight of their forgotten memories that echo there. They found a grand hall with an enormous fireplace, so they camped there for the night. Every participant is assigned a camera to record their experience, and Ethan starts setting up his equipment: motion detectors, thermal cameras, and audio recorders. The flickering lights create an eerie silence as the ambiance starts seeping into their bones. Priya is explaining the history of the mission. Once it was run by Father Sebastian, who lost his mind when the congregation started dying mysteriously. It is believed that he performed dark rituals hoping to save the mission. Rather, he released a malevolent spirit. The journal that he wrote, hidden somewhere within the house, could tell what really happened. Isabella, desperate to find the journal, persuades the group to split up and go their separate ways in the house. Act 2. The haunting takes place. Scene 3. The first encounter. The group separates into pairs and walks through the dark hallways. Ethan and Rachel go down into the basement, where Father Sebastian had performed his ritual. Isabella and Jimmy check the old chapel, while Priya and Mike search the library, perhaps where a priest's journal could be hidden. The temperature lowers rapidly in the basement, and Ethan's gadgets begin beeping wildly. Rachel feels a presence, but she tries to rationalize the feeling to maintain her calmness. Ethan captures, on his camera, something that moves in the shadows. Yet, they both look up to see nothing there. All of the symbols on the walls are markings of very old times, and they still do not know what they are. In the chapel, meanwhile, Isabella videotapes herself as she moves up and down the rows of pews. Jimmy lights a cigarette. He doesn't appear impressed by all the good vibes his organization should be bringing. Suddenly, Isabella's camera jolts and flickers and shows her something, suspended in the frame. A tall man in priestly robes standing behind the altar. She gasps. But when she looks up, he is gone. Jimmy notices Isabella's fear, but he writes it off as nerves. Priya and Mike dig through dusty books in the library, trying to find Father Sebastian's journal. Mike is full of sarcastic remarks, but Priya is completely absorbed into history. She finds an old book that has talk about a curse on anyone who disturbs the mission. But before she can read any further, they hear the door slam behind them. Scene 4. The Descent into Fear. The group reassembles in the Grand Hall to discuss their findings. Tension is running high as they share their experiences. Ethan showcases footage on his camera where the shadowy figure revealed in the basement. Isabella's face grows pale as she speaks of the apparition in the chapel, of the priest. Mike tries to laugh off the whole thing, still skeptical, but Priya is convinced that they are in danger. That night, they lie awake. Strange noises are coming from the house. Footsteps in the hallways, whispers seemingly coming from the walls, the dragging of something heavy across the floor. At midnight, Isabella wakes up as she feels a cold hand brush over her cheek. She screams out, bringing everybody to their feet. They all rush to Isabella to find her petrified but nothing out of the ordinary. Desperate to put an end to the rising terror, Jimmy resolves to investigate it himself. Returning to the chapel, which he had dismissed concerning the sighting of Isabella, he stands at the altar, taunting the spirit. The temperature drops once again. The doors slam behind him. The candles flicker. He hears a low, guttural voice calling out to him by name. Then, before he can even raise an eyebrow, he's flung across the room by an unseen force. Dr. Teat 3, unlocking the secret of the mission. Scene 5. Finding the journal. The group, terrified, begins with the realization that they need to find Father Sebastian's journal to know what they are facing. Priya argues it is their only hope. They rush back to the library to search frantically. After a couple of hours of going around the room, Priya stumbled upon a small hidden compartment inside the floor. Inside it was the journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. And, as they opened it and read, they found that Father Sebastian had indeed performed all those rituals inside that were meant to ward off all evil spirits, but in this case backfired, trapping the vengeful spirit within the walls. It is said to be someone who was once a member of the congregation trusted by the priest himself during this performed ritual. In fact, the journal warns that the spirit grows stronger with every soul that enters the mission, and it will not rest until it has claimed enough lives to escape. Scene 6. The final confrontation. Desperate to get out, the group tries making a break for it, but the mission's doors have sealed shut. Ethan's equipment has malfunctioned. The power is knocked out, and everything is dark. The spirit is fully awake. It is everywhere, in every room of the house. The members are attacked one by the unknown entity. Ethan is dragged into the basement, screaming for help. Rachel attempts to confront the spirit using her training in psychology to rationalize the situation, but ended up in a trance-like state, mumbling phrases she found in Father Sebastian's journal. Isabella, videotaping everything, comes to the realization that they are all doomed unless they can pull off this counter-ritual in order to vanquish the spirit. Priya, with some background on the history of the mission, tries to figure out the ritual, but time's running out. In the heart-thumping final sequence, the group converges inside the chapel with wild shooting, flames of candles interspersed among the wrathful spirit. Wind howls through broken windows. Bruised and battered from his earlier encounter, Jimmy tries to protect the others, but the spirit is relentless. Priya reads from the journal, reciting the ancient incantations needed to banish the spirit. The walls shake, and the ground cracks beneath their feet. Just as the spirit is about to claim its next victim, there's a blinding flash of light, and the entity lets out a deafening scream. Scene 7. Escape and Revelation. As the light faded, the mission lapsed into silence. It was gone, driven back into darkness. The group managed to stumble out of the mission house just as the first light of dawn penetrated the trees. They stood there silently, gazing about at the structure that had almost ended their lives. Nothing was said. Nothing needed to be said. They'd survived, but nothing will ever be the same again. Days go by. She posts her videos, and in the days that follow, they blow up. Overnight, the world became addicted to their story. Of course, none of the survivors ever go back to the house. No one collects on the prize in the anonymous letters. The house sits in its silence, as it always has, waiting for new guests. And in the darkness, there is a spirit, waiting. This script has a good balance of suspense, character development, and slow build-up of fear, all on the back of engaging the audience. By introducing tension between the skeptical and believers, mixed with history and supernatural elements, the haunted mission becomes a gripping experience for the viewers.